Hey, this is CJ. I am here to introduce you to a different type of episode. This is actually an interview we recorded about 2 years ago. This is with Chris Pisar of CP Media. Chris is a solopreneur and a web developer. He's also a really good friend. So I hope you enjoy getting to know Chris and hearing about some of his ups and downs of being in business. This week on the Minding Your Business podcast, we talk about confidence, clients, and the Churn-and-Burn model, all with our special guest, Chris Pisar. All right, welcome to the podcast. We are here with Aaron, as usual, me, CJ, and then our guest today is Chris Pisar. Pisar?
Yes, sir.
Pisar.
That's it.
Not
Nope.
Pisar?
No other way you can pronounce
Pisar.
it. That's it.
Okay.
Pisar good. Like that's how I remind
there we
people
go.
how to say it. Just chop good off the end.
So, Chris, you're a web developer.
Yes, I am.
We've actually known each other for probably 10 years.
Yeah, roughly.
Something like that. And I think you're pretty good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So just give me I know like CP Media is the name of your company.
Correct.
What would you say you do here?
Well, I am a one-man band for the most part. I do deal with some contract people for different, elements of different projects. But yeah, for the most part, it's web design and development, a little bit of SEO in there, a little bit of automation in there. Mostly web design and development, and then whatever else we needed to kind of tidy up that package, have it all in one nice, neat arrangement for the client.
Okay. So, but you've been basically self-employed for the last, 7, 8, 10 years?
Officially, I started my company in 2014.
Okay.
But I've been doing it for a couple years before that. And I mean, my design and development stuff goes all the way back to the 90s, actually. So when I was a teenager, me and a buddy kind of got into it and dabbled a little bit. It wasn't my job or anything, but that's kind of where I got my start.
Okay. So you've made it past that 2-year hump that everyone talks about.
Yep.
If, we're going to dig deep into stuff, but like, why in the world did you ever decide to go out and have a business or not, work for someone else?
It wasn't on purpose.
I understand.
So I went to school for a long time. I got my AA and then I got my BA, and I was like working at Fox Sports in Los Angeles. I wanted to be in sports television, was working towards something in broadcast, went to grad school at USC, thought I was going to be in broadcast, did some stuff after I graduated in baseball, and then just decided like, I don't know how good the fit is. I don't really want to be in the public eye a bunch. I don't want to do sales that much, which is ironic because I still do some. But those two things and family really pushed me in another direction. And funny enough, me and you linked up within a couple of months of me quitting my broadcast career.
Yeah, so, I remember that. I remember a round of golf.
Yes, that's where it happened on the golf course here in Bakersfield. And, that's kind of how it took off. You really helped me out there. And, one thing after another, kind of just growing each and every year. And here we are today. Well,
I love too that like I remember when you started, you had very much a technical ability, but you even said like we're not a designer. You could make things work, but you couldn't make them pretty. And I'm paraphrasing from years of.
I think that's a good description.
Okay, yeah. But at the time we had also a designer that could design things, did a lot of graphic stuff, but couldn't make things work. So it worked out really well. But now it's 10 years later or whatever, I see you like your stuff has really grown, and you've grown as a developer, as a business person and all that stuff. It's really cool to see, because you do stuff and you'll show me, I'm like, I don't even want to know how to do that.
Yeah. So, like I was saying before, it was a long development phase. The first couple of years, I'd say the first 2 years were really tough. Like I wasn't bringing in a ton of money, but I did have enough, to have a roommate and pay my bills and that kind of stuff. And then a few little tips along the way, a couple of them from you, kind of helped me turn the corner. That monthly recurring revenue is a big one.
Preach.
So you can lay your hat on that and not worry per se month to month. And then as you get better and put more work out there, more people are seeing it, more people are talking about it, and word of mouth has really been huge for me in terms of growth.
Same. I mean, that's honestly how I've always handled my stuff. Marketing is great, but if you don't have good word of mouth, you're just kind of throwing money away. I think you should throw money at marketing to help improve your word of mouth.
Yes.
So
working on that. So like I said, everything's work in progress, a little bit at a time.
now, do you still something I've done since the 90s is basically put a little, tramp stamp, at the bottom, in the copyright section, like, hey, built by whoever.
I used to be a little bit shy about it because, like you were saying earlier, sometimes it wasn't the prettiest end product, might have got the job done.
Right.
So I wasn't like, hey, I want to say everybody, this is mine, shout it from the rooftops. Now I do it every time. I don't really care. It's not always what you see on the front end because a lot of times the client is dictating things that end up there that I don't necessarily want there, but client wants it, so it ends up there. And at the end of the day, I'm happy with the way it's structured, the way it's developed. Stuff you can't necessarily see, frameworks and whatnot.
Yeah. So obviously, like you're doing well enough to still be around. Right?
Yes.
So that's awesome. But, how much, like you said, the first couple of years were a little like,
Yeah. First two.
Obviously what we're about here is mindset, right? So if you think you're going to fail, you're going to fail. Right. So how much of that did you go through? How much did you struggle with those like thoughts, good or bad, during that process? And is that something that you've learned to overcome? I can keep adding.
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, mental fortitude is important. Like you got to have some strength in there to push through some rough patches for sure. For me, it was kind of a transition time in my life. I moved back to Bakersfield from the Los Angeles area. Like I said, I had just quit my broadcast career and really was diving into this. So I don't know, things just kind of fell into place. And the fact that there was a lot of change happening, I didn't really have negative thoughts, which I would say I'm kind of lucky. But of course, I've had some patches where I'm like, man, like I need a project to come in so I can pay this bill or that bill. Like just uncertainty, I think, really.
Yeah.
And then also the nature of the job, sitting behind a desk, being a solopreneur, you're by yourself all the time. There's not always someone to bounce ideas off of. So that was a really nice aspect, kind of looking back on working with you and the team there. And yeah, just like taking something from every experience that I have and being able to pick the good fruit off that tree and parlay that into my next project, my next, business venture, whatever that happens to be. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything, but yeah, especially even in the last couple of years when we talk about COVID, even less interaction, more Zoom stuff, that kind of stuff. Mental health is definitely important. Definitely take time for yourself. Definitely need breaks, even during the day, work for an hour, take a 10-minute break, whether that's getting up, walking around, grab a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, whatever it is, just a little reprieve for your mind to kind of recenter and jump back in. And that is actually really hard for developers specifically because I get in the groove and I'm like, I am really working good on this page or this specific aspect and I don't want to jump out. Like I tell my wife all the time, she's like, could you come do this? I'm like, I'm not at a good stopping point. And she knows what that means. Right.
Exact same situation. I totally understand. It's like, just bring me the pea jar. I got to stay here and keep working.
Yeah. Bring me the big Gatorade bottle.
So you mentioned, this is really an errand question, but you mentioned working by yourself, like being the solopreneur. Like, do you have like a support system in place or people that you go to that you can bounce ideas off of, like that you meet with on a regular basis?
Nothing super regular or formal, but I do have places I can go and people that I can bounce ideas off of. You're one of them, CJ. So, thank you for that. But yeah, like I'm part of several online communities, whether that be tied to different tools I use in the development process. I'm also in just a creative digital group where it's really nice because it's very open. It's not just development or just web design. There's other little aspects, as I mentioned, lots of little things. It could be something as simple as bookkeeping for your business, right? Okay. So a lot of little things can make a big difference for a solopreneur. I mentioned automation earlier, also very big for me. To help make things smooth and easy, give my time back to the places it needs to be.
Right. I totally understand the automation part. Aaron, since I've just stepped all over your questions, do you want to throw anything out there? I'm sorry, I've been paying too much attention to the things you ask, and I'm just like, I'm just excited to ask those myself.
Yeah. No, honestly, you're doing a great job of just talking away. I kind of got caught up in the moment. But just to kind of go back a little bit, I heard you say something that kind of stood out to me. And that was when you first got started, you were almost embarrassed to put your name on the websites you built because you weren't happy with the way they looked based on the client's expectations. So you met their needs, but you still didn't want to put your name on it. And it looks like at some point, and you said maybe it was around year 2, so I'll double check on that in a second. You kind of made a turn to where you now know who you are. You've made it through that transition of figuring out what kind of a person you are, what kind of business you're going to run. And now when you do a good job, regardless of what it looks like to the end user, you did what you were supposed to do. So you're proudly putting your name on it. And I think that's a huge transition. Did you recognize that transition as like all of a sudden, or did it slowly occur over that at about that 2-year part?
I think it's kind of a little bit of both. It did kind of happen all of a sudden where I just was like, yeah, you know what? I have the confidence in my work that this is fine. Like, no one's going to come and judge me like, oh my gosh, I found this website that you made and it's really bad. Like I've never had that before, right? So
right.
It was probably much ado about nothing in the beginning, but it kind of did just all happen at once. And I think what it was, it's just over time, you get more confident in your skills, and like you said, what you're putting out there is good, whether that, is everyone's idea of good. Meeting the client's, wants and needs is first and foremost. And then from there, if I can have my way, it'll look pretty, but it'll also do its job very effectively. So a little bit over time, but I kind of recognized it at once. It didn't kind of dawn on me a little bit over time, kind of hit me, but then it did happen over time, but it hit me all at once, I guess is the best way I could put it.
Okay, that was my question. And it kind of ties back to confidence and competence. And so it sounds like you were very much competent in your ability, but confidence came later. And I know too often people are waiting for the confidence to do something, and realistically, you just have to step out and do it. So what gave you that courage to step out and do it before you had the confidence?
I think it was multiple factors, but I think, the people I worked with, again, I got to bring CJ up because the environment we had there was very responsive in terms of like, you have an idea, bounce it off all of us. Let's see what we think. We'll have a little powwow. We'll talk about it. We'll see what's good, what's bad, indifferent, and kind of work from there. So that helped me in that mind frame, but also just getting work, as you said, just practice makes perfect, right? So getting jobs, doing jobs, completing jobs, putting those out there and doing it again, lather, rinse, repeat. And your skills are building the whole time, and your confidence is building with those skills. And then also in the digital world, it's vast. I mean, there's a never ending amount of information, but also it's probably the fastest changing thing there is.
Yeah.
I might learn something today that's obsolete tomorrow. Maybe not exactly that fast, but you get the idea.
Yeah, right. You can't shut down your learning ability.
Which I love because my brain is naturally curious. Like I have to know, and it doesn't have to even be web design and development related. It could just pop up randomness and I have to know the answer to this. So it might lead me down a rabbit hole or something, but I'm going to find out. My brain's going to be satiated with that information.
Oh man. So I wanted to I do want to clarify one thing, like for people that don't know, like you and I are both nerds, so yes, it's fine.
Happy and proud of it.
Right. We'll rule the world one day. But basically you talk about designer, developer, people that don't know, like they just think, oh, there's a website guy.
Right.
But that's obviously, there's very few people that can design and build a website, right?
Yeah. I mean, it goes way, way, way back. Specialization it's a real thing. So like the less things you're focused on, the better you can be at that one specific job, that one specific task in that realm. So if you think there's just a website guy, there might be, but that's not going to produce a better result than specialization of having someone wireframe, design that out, and then passing that to a developer and have them put those pieces together on the front end. And then, there might be other pieces to that puzzle as well, just depending on the project and, what they're shooting for.
Right. I actually I would say that I know personally 3 people that can design and develop a website, and it'd be you, me, and then Gina. Like that, those are the 3. I don't know anyone else that has that ability to get that right brain and left brain working together.
It's not
and that's
easy.
not like a patting ourselves on the back kind of thing. It's just we're wired a little different, a little weird probably, because design is very much a creative process.
Yeah, for me, and it works different for everyone, but for me on the design part, when I need to be involved in that, which I usually have been up until this point, although I'm working away from that at this moment, I need inspiration. Some people are naturally creative and it just pours out of them. I absolutely need inspiration. I need to see something that lights my fire and gives me an idea that I can manipulate and work my own, way for the client.
Right. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've ever had a unique idea. I think I see someone's other thing and I see the problems with it or the areas of improvement. Here's how this could be improved. And then I take it and I kind of make it, my own version of it. But that's partly where whenever you worked for me, it was called Creatively Blind.
Right.
And so that's kind of where that name came from. I felt like I was creatively blind, inept, but also I wear very thick glasses, or at this point, really thick contacts. So it was being creative through my lack of vision. So a little play on words.
Just art in general. I mean, take music, for example. There are very few original ideas. Everything piggybacks off the other thing. And art is very similar too. Even if you're talking about famous artists, they have periods of different kinds of styles. Well, everything's piggybacking off that to the next thing. Yeah. And someone puts their own twist on it and it becomes its own thing. But those things likely wouldn't have been possible without the predecessors. So.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, where are you headed? What's your goal for the next 2 to 5 years?
Growth and some of the things I already mentioned. So really get into specializing with my company, take the company I have now, break it into pieces. I want to be a sole developer. I want to have a designer pass me those designs so I can develop them and really hone in on that craft. And even the basic parts of the business, like scheduling, paying the bills, taxes, that kind of stuff. I want to push all that to someone else as well, and really take my time back to help the business grow from the main aspect, which is development.
Right.
And then in terms of long-term goals, we were kind of talking about it earlier before we jumped on. And, I want to break off into different companies with different ideas, right? So for lack of a better term, a churn and burn. So like a quick website, someone that doesn't need something developed deeply with dynamic data and all this customization. They just need something pretty plain, cut and dry, a business card of sorts. Kind of thing.
Right. Online brochure.
Great way to put it.
Those are my favorites.
Have a business for that. Keep my business as is for these other more in-depth projects. Yeah. So that's kind of my long-term thing, but there are a lot of obviously little parts that go along with those big ideas.
I'm going to ask one more thing and then I'll let Aaron jump back in, but I know you have, but what would you say to people if they're presented with a project that is maybe one they shouldn't take? Because we've all taken those projects we shouldn't have.
So that's
probably
a really
because we needed the money.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So it's a tough question. Obviously, I can't, say what financial position you are in to take a job because of the financial position you're in. I understand, and you can do that and you can get through it. But if at all possible, avoid the jobs because of that you don't want to take because of clients or whatever the specific reason is that you don't want to take this job. If you at all cannot take this job, don't.
Yeah.
Because it'll make you miserable. A bad client can literally make you miserable and they can ruin, I love my job. I actually enjoy my job. A lot of people go to work, they don't enjoy their job. I go to work, I like developing. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time for me. And it might sound weird to someone, but it is a good time for me. But if you throw a bad client in there that pushes back a lot and tries to be the expert when they hired you to be the expert,
Ooh.
As an example, it can be a bad experience and it can leave a bad taste in your mouth, and it might sour you on something that you like. And I have no interest in doing that. And if you can avoid that, by all means, avoid it.
Okay. Interesting. I like hearing that kind of stuff. Me personally, I think we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. So
For sure.
when you have that intuition that comes in and something in your head, something's telling you, avoid this person, avoid this project, avoid this task. Typically speaking, it's something that you're reminded of from the past. And so if you didn't have those bad experiences, you won't have that intuition later. So I like to tell people, make all your mistakes early on. Be willing to take chances, because if you're not and you think, no, I only want to do the stuff I love, you might miss opportunities that would otherwise become like your passion. So you have to be ready and willing to eat everything and then decide what you don't like after.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, I've done many projects with bad clients, and CJ probably remembers a couple of them.
It's just a good education.
It is a good education, but I think it's kind of fits in that growth period, because you're in a place where you probably need to take on more things than you might want to, or a job that you might not want to. But like you said, it can really put you in a place where you can learn from that. And I mentioned that before, just piecing up little things over time to make a big picture puzzle. That makes you the professional that you are at this moment, right? I'm going to be different tomorrow than I am today even, but that growth over those first couple of years where I did have to take on some problem clients, as I like to call them,
right?
It was beneficial. So,
okay,
I guess if you're in a spot where you have to take those clients, it's gonna pay dues two ways, right? You probably get some money, and then you'll also
learn a lesson.
You'll learn a lesson, right?
So I like to say we learn through our own actions, and then we learn through osmosis, right? So if you're by yourself as a solopreneur and you don't have a group of people, a mentor or somebody to talk to, you're not going to learn lessons by just being like, I'm going to avoid that because I'm going to guess that that's probably a bad experience. Whereas if you have a mentor and they tell you, this is what you can expect from that if you take it. Now, if you're willing to pay the price, then you get to cash the check. But if not, then avoid it. And this is why you should avoid it, or this is what you should look for in the future. I think it really depends on where you are at personally as to what you can and can't decide on. I think the people we surround ourselves with I think it shortcuts us to success. Would you agree or disagree on that?
No, I would agree. The people around you, and mind you, especially in this age, they don't need to be physical people like sitting next to you. Obviously, that's nice. But yeah, the digital world is vast. Like we're talking on Zoom right now. Hey, get on Zoom, talk to someone, find some support groups for things that you're involved in on work. I'm involved on some Facebook groups. I know it's not the best, but then there's also just straight digital community. It's almost like a forum, and I actually pay for membership in here. But the important part about that is these people are serious,
right? Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just everyday Joes in there giving advice when they don't even do these jobs, right? So
right,
it's been well worth it to me, a small price to pay when I have these people to not just bounce ideas off of, but in the world of development, I run into roadblocks sometimes, and people have already worked through those. So why beat your head against the wall when the solution is right in front of you? You just have to reach out and ask. It's like going to the store, and this is a man problem. In my opinion, go to Home Depot, right? And I'm looking for some specific tool. I can't find it. I don't want to ask the worker, right? I'm gonna walk around that store until I find it. Yeah, no way I'm pulling over to this gas station and asking this guy how to get where I'm going, right? But no, you should. You absolutely should, because guess what? You're gonna get there quicker, and you're probably gonna get there more efficiently. And in the end of the day, that's only going to help you, help your bottom line, etc. So it definitely helps you run a better business.
Yeah. And it's not just in the development side, obviously there's that, too,
field.
But just in I remember when I came to you, and I think it was 2017 or 18, it was either the beginning of 18 or the end of 17. And I was like, here's how I'm going to blow up my business and change stuff.
Right.
And I don't know how skeptical you were at the time. You seemed a little skeptical. But I basically said, forget this charging a bunch of money up front and then not getting anything on maintenance. So for years and years, I'd been doing web development since 97. So, you'd have a project and it'd be, thousands of dollars. Great. Awesome. And then you're so busy trying to do the project that you're not out selling, you're not out networking. You're just trying to get it done so you can get paid. And then you're done and you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs and it's like, okay, I got to go to another project. And had done that roller coaster thing for so long that basically like, it just hit me like, let's do lower cost up front and a higher cost of maintenance, because we're also building stuff on WordPress now and it takes maintenance. There are plugins that break things. Yep. There's updates to Google every other day, to go Google Chrome or Safari, and things change and we have to stay on top of things. And it's not the same as hosting a static web page on a server that costs GeoCities, exactly. It's just so different now because things are dynamic. They're not just static where when I started this, you could build a web page in Notepad. And I'm not saying you can't do that now.
You can.
But why would you?
Yeah, no, it's kind of what I was just talking about before with like support groups. It's no different. If there's resources out there, use them. Yeah. Why? Like, don't go in a cave and try and learn how to make fire, right? Somebody already did that a long time ago. Like, so there's no need to do that. So yeah, absolutely use the resources out there. They're very abundant. There are a lot of resources out there, no matter what you're doing. Something as simple as YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
Learn how to rebuild a car engine.
I was going to say, I'm a YouTube mechanic.
There you go.
Certified. I watched the video and everything. So have there been any, and if not, great. And if you don't want to talk about it, no big deal. But have there been any points in the last 8-10 years of the business where you're just like, no, this is too much. I think I just need to go get a job? Not really. There are a couple of aspects of being a solopreneur where sometimes I feel like that, but not really as a whole do I ever feel like giving up. Like I said, I really like what I do. It's the parts that are tied to it that I don't love. It's about to be a new year. That means it's tax season, right? Not my favorite part of the job. No. Adding up receipts and different stuff from your credit cards for the year and sort that out and getting that all over to your CPA. It's not a good time. It's not what I consider a good time. It's not my favorite part of the job. I wish I didn't have to do it. Then there's health insurance kind of stuff, right? So benefits is another thing. I don't get benefits because I am a solopreneur, but the benefits are working from my home, seeing my daughter whenever I want and my wife all the time, just those kind of things, making my own schedule. Those are benefits, but they're not quote unquote benefits. I don't have health insurance through the place I work for. Right. That kind of stuff. So yeah, there definitely is some downsides, but there are a lot of upsides too. And it definitely takes a certain kind of person. It's definitely not for everyone. But I guess it is for me. Well, I was reading, I'm embarrassed to say that I have not read this up to this point in my life, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I just started that. One of the things that they talk about, I know Aaron's laughing because he's like, how could you have not read this? Anyway. So yeah, for the marketing guy. Come on. I know. So, but I don't get me wrong. I got the Cliff's notes from people that had read it years and years ago. That's how I've read it. But now I'm like, I want the details. So, but it talks about basically like what motivates most people is fear and desire or greed, and the reason people get up and go to a job is because they're afraid of not having money. Right. And that they haven't learned how to make their money work for them instead of they just work for money. Right. And the desire is what happens when you have money and you want the new stuff. And then you get yourself stuck in this endless cycle of, I want more stuff. I need to have more money. I have to work to get that money. And I'm not saying I'm there, but I figured out a long time ago that I do like money, but I care more about freedom. And I know what I'm working for. For me, it's about being able to drive across the country and see some family for Christmas, spend a couple weeks in California instead of, sorry guys, got to work. I'm still working. Don't get me wrong. Sure. I put in, I think, a 12-hour day yesterday because I was trying to make up for the time that was off for Christmas. But it's just a different thing, and I think moving towards, I used to trade time for money And it doesn't matter how much you charge. You can charge $1,000 an hour at a certain point. Every hour you take off, you're thinking about the money you didn't make.
I'm trading money for time.
Right.
All day.
Right.
You got it. You hit the nail on the head, man.
So I think, you're doing some of that recurring stuff now too.
Yeah, that was a big game changer.
Yeah.
Talk about the process over time. That was one of maybe 3 things where I'm like, wow, light bulb really changed the business. I think you're right. I think it was the end of 2018. And I've had 3 consecutive bigger years than I had the year before.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I mean, that's in COVID. So, hats off to you with coming up with some ideas that I can take and work and, other stuff along the way. But yeah,
it's not me. I mean, honestly, when I was telling you,
idea,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, so.
When I was telling you, I wasn't sure if I was crazy because the look I was getting back, but I'm glad to see it's working out for you. I know that
it just felt crazy at the time because we just got done a couple of years with the old model, right? So
right.
You're like, well, that was working.
And we did really well with the old model.
It wasn't bad. We were all living. We're all paying our bills.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
I will say it was an absolute blast. I will probably, I kind of hate to admit this, but our office was very macho. Like for a bunch of nerds, it was very macho.
Yeah. I mean, it was all guys.
It was very, the things that could be like done and said in that office without anyone thinking anything about it.
Well, we had the vibes too.
We had
right? We had cool furniture, nice like computer stuff. We had the game room, and
we had the beer fridge.
Yep. And we could walk across the street and have a little bourbon or something if we wanted. If it was a rough day, it was nice. We had a nice setup and we worked well together.
I will say this: I do work much more efficiently without day drinking. I know that sounds crazy.
No, I think that most people would agree because I'm right there with you.
But I do remember, like, some of my favorite times actually would have been like whiteboard sessions, brainstorming sessions. And, that's actually one of my favorite things anyway, because it's when I say I don't feel like I'm that creative, I just take someone else's idea and, kind of improve it. It gives, when you're all working together, trying to come up with something better, it's so much fun. And that's one of the things I actually would say that I really miss about having a physical office and a, place where we all meet and, do stuff like that, but at the same time, Zoom's okay.
Collaboration is a real thing. I mean, it definitely helps. You got more ideas in 2 brains than you have in one. And then exponentially from there, you add another. So
yeah.
It's funny you mentioned whiteboards because I'm thinking about one specific whiteboard where we came up with an idea that actually might be coming to fruition like soon.
Ooh, which one is this? Are you allowed to say? Do I know? And I'm just like...
It's just like, it's, for lack of a better explanation, it's the churn-and-burn thing I was talking about before.
Yep.
Quick sites. I don't remember what was.
I actually do remember this.
Okay, see?
Okay, so I'll let the cat out of the bag on this one.
Okay.
So I remember writing it on the board and writing out a plan. That's actually where that recurring
That's what I'm
thing
talking
came from,
about.
right?
It came from
Yeah.
that, but you didn't go for it for a lot longer.
So it was Infinite Sites.
Infinite, that
was the initial name.
That's where Infini came from.
That's where Infini came from.
Okay.
Infini Sites.
That's right.
Infini Systems. That's the name of my website business. But yeah, that all came from that whiteboard, right?
Yep.
And the pricing's a little different, but it was like, that was the initial idea. That was 2014. And it took me 4 years to actually pull the trigger. Mainly because I was kind of afraid.
Well, it's scary.
But
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know you've heard that before. So, that's probably where those faces came from that I was giving you that day when you told me about your new model.
And we had clients that had paid us a lot of money to build things. And so the idea of like building things seemingly cheaper, I thought might upset them. But at the end of the day, I feel like I made the right decision. It took a few years to really like gain traction.
I don't think I know. I know that was the right decision.
Yeah. So getting back to like mindset stuff. Do you ever have like days where you're just like, I've grinded the last, 6 or 7 days or whatever. Like I just need to like give myself a break.
Yep. Absolutely. You have to, because you will get burnout, and that goes for any realm, any profession, any job, any business you're running. If you go too hard for too long, you will get burnout, and it will affect something. It might affect your family. It might affect your business itself. Might affect your health. So there's a lot of merit in that. Definitely, as I said before, take your breaks.
I think we all know that if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to get burnt out. Is there any one specific thing that you have found that always works for you? Or do you find that as you start to feel burnt out, you try something and you're like, oh, it's just not working like it used to? Do you have a specific go-to, or do you kind of have a list of things that you end up trying?
I think the main one for me is family. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and honestly, that makes it pretty easy for me. Now, she's only been around for 3 years, right? So I didn't have that before, but ever since she came around there, I mean, the focus is there. So it's really easy to distract your mind on her, whatever she's doing. And, it takes me to a happy place. I mean, how can it not? Seeing her face, just whatever we're doing. So that's kind of part of what I was talking about before. I can just come out the doors of my office and she's there. And so it doesn't really take any time. Like maybe someone goes to the gym or something to burn off steam to kind of reset from work or, whatever it may be. But I don't have to drive anywhere, right? She's already there. She's always there. And it's a great escape for me physically, mentally, to be with her. And, that has other good benefits. It gives mom a break too. So
that sounds like you're investing your time wisely.
I try. I definitely try.
So have you noticed, like, one thing I noticed, because I've burned out a few times, like just working too many hours or just felt like I was pushing a rope uphill, whatever. And I noticed that my tolerance for, let's just say BS is lower and lower than it used to be. And so I will find myself not able to deal with the, it sounds bad, not able to deal with it, not able to deal with other people's BS, for too long before I'm like, I need to step away from this thing and take a moment, to collect myself. I need to remind myself of why I'm in this position, why I'm doing this. But that fuse has gotten shorter and shorter than it was, let's say, in my early 30s. Have you noticed any of that stuff as you get older, as you put more time in the business?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that's kind of just a part of growing older. It's not necessarily just work. But I think it also goes back to something we've already talked about. Bad clients, bad jobs, those are going to do it to you a lot quicker and a lot faster.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's one thing I realized, in the last year or so, I have a handful of people that I would call are just reliable. Like I don't have to, you're one of them. And so is Aaron. Like if you guys say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. In fact, you're probably going to do more than you said you were going to do. And one, I want to be that kind of person. But two, I don't want people that aren't like that in my life.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up because in terms of my business and being able to grow as a solopreneur, I mentioned automation and contracting out different parts of the job that I might need that I can't necessarily take care of as well as I'd like. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
At the end of the day, like, especially if you're ever in a client facing position, which you are, and I am, if you're not doing, let's say, a portion of the work someone else is, that's how it's always going to be for me. I'm still the one that's held accountable. So if we had a deadline and it's slipping because of someone on the team,
you're going to be up late.
Them.
You're going to be up late.
I'm going to be the one. Yeah, I'm going to be the one that wakes up in the middle of the night and can't sleep because I'm worried about it.
Well, I lost my train of thought, but that's what I was getting at. It's like in trying to grow your business, you try to bring in other people to take on other parts of your business.
Right.
But do you trust them to do the job as well as you or better than you? And that essentially, at the end of the day, is all I'm going for. But it's very difficult.
It really is. So gosh, I forget the guy's name. Michael Gerber, I think is his name. He wrote the E-Myth books, and I might be wrong on the author, but the books, the E-Myth books, are absolutely amazing. And that's what he talks about is basically, if you're really an entrepreneur, you're replacing yourself.
Right.
With people that are going to do the job better than you could. If you think that you're the one that's going to do the best job, then you've already limited everything.
Yeah, your ceiling is real low.
Yeah, and so that's one of the, I want to be one of the dumber people in the room, honestly. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room at all. In fact, I think if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're you're probably wrong.
You're definitely not. Yeah. Or you're only person in the room.
Or you're definitely in the wrong room.
That's a de facto.
That's a good one. Yeah. If you're not the smartest person in the room and you're the only person in the room, you got trouble.
You're seeing ghosts or something.
I don't know. Oh man. So Aaron,
I got one more question that's kind of been, I don't know, gnawing at me, and I've been trying to figure out how to word it properly. I feel like that there's three types of currency. There's three things that we value. There's time, money, and education, like what we understand or what we know, our knowledge or skill base. So you've already stated, Chris, that when like in the industry you're in and running a solopreneur business, it's changing constantly. So obviously your skill set and education, all of that comes into play, like what you know. And even when you said trying to find other people that can do those parts of the business that you don't like to do, the bookkeeping and so forth, they obviously have to have the knowledge and skill set to do it. And then there's time and money that's left. So time, I feel like, is finite and money is infinite. You can always get more money. You can waste money, you can throw away money, you can spend money, you can invest money, but time is one of the things that you can't ever get back. You're given a specific amount of, we don't know exactly how many that is, but a specific amount of seconds to be alive. And if you waste those, they're gone. So how much of your time would you say you devote now at this stage in your business to your family and to your business and to your education? Like basically your time, your money, and your skill set.
Yeah. So like in a hierarchical ranking, like for me, number one is definitely time. So I prioritize time the most. And then I'd say education is number two. And number three would be money. And obviously, you know, we've covered this topic a lot today. You got to have money to pay your bills and live and all that general stuff. But I think if you get all these parts lined up properly, the money part's going to take care of itself.
Right.
Put some trust in yourself, in your skills, and just trust the process. You know, you can't be lazy. You can't just kick back and think it's going to happen for you. But if you're working the process, if you have a support group, if you're learning all the time, your skills will improve. You'll be able to charge more for those skills. It'll take you less time to do those jobs. You'll have more time, you'll have more money, and you'll still be learning in the process. So, I mean, I think that's as clean as I can give it to you, really.
I love it. He's going to drop the mic.
Yeah, nicely put. Outstanding.
So in that, like, that time is the thing you value the most, and I'm right there with you. How do you invest that? Like how do you split up your time? Where's that like work-life balance between, working and learning and your family?
So for sure, I would say like over time, I've slowly gotten my time back. So I've spent less time working and then more free time, as you like to put it, to spend with family and do whatever I want. I'm a weirdo, like you said, nerd, that kind of stuff. So in my free time, I like to learn.
Yeah.
So that part kind of comes easy for me. I'll, laying on the couch, relaxing in the evening, pop on a video that I saw, something that I want to kind of dive into, and there you go. In terms of exact breakdown, I mean, I don't say, okay, I'm going to work X amount of hours this week and X amount of hours for my family, but I do spend a lot of family time. Mentioned my daughter earlier. If I hear something going on and the wife needs me or something, I'm gonna pop out of the office. I'm gonna put everything on pause and pop out of the office. I'm gonna do what I need to do, and then I'll jump back in there. So I don't have a crazy set schedule, but I definitely prioritize time with the family. As CJ said, I'm pretty dependable, I like to think. So I definitely will get the job done when I say I'm gonna get the job done.
Yeah. And
I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. A good example right now, I'm working on a very large project, really close to the end. I told the owner of the business that he would definitely have a site to review this week, and he's going to have a site to review this week. That may mean I've worked a couple of nights when everyone goes to sleep, but you know what? That's fine with me. I don't mind that. Everything works out just fine with that setup. So,
right.
Yeah, without getting very specific, allotment of hours type of thing, I prioritize family over work, but I still make sure that I get all my work done in whatever time frame it is that I promise. So, the whole under promise, over deliver. That's kind of where you got to live. Expectations are real. So
it's funny. There's like all these cliches like that, like over, you know,
they're real though.
but it really is, man.
Because people say them and they see the truth in them. So people keep saying them.
Right. Like things like, oh, your word is your bond. Like, I mean, I want to be that kind of person, right? That's what I strive to. And I can't stand being around people that aren't like that.
It's
like,
not as widespread as you'd hope. That's for sure.
It's sure not. In fact, like, and maybe it's part of getting older too, you know? I mean, I definitely was not as serious as I am now when I was 22. You know,
surely not.
Not that I'm not serious now, so it's a pretty low bar, but you know,
right.
But no, I just think that like at the end of the day, like, you know, if you're doing this business, especially as a solopreneur, your work is it's your lifeblood put into it, you know, and you don't want that to be riddled with, oh, it was late, or, oh, I didn't do as good a job as I wanted to, you know. Like for me, when in those situations, I get very focused and I want to get the work done and I want to be as good as it can be.
Yeah, to the best of your ability.
Exactly.
There's another phrase for you. I mean, that's real. You can only do that. You know, if you haven't been designing for 10 years, how are you going to design like you've been designing for 10 years?
Right.
It's impossible. So
let's, you know, I think we're kind of winding down, but you know, you have to go finish your project. But do you have any advice? I think you already did it with your mic drop, but do you have any advice to someone that's out there, regardless of the industry, but they're, you know, starting out, maybe they're in that like 2-year lull, the suck, you know, and like they're in the middle of it right now. Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Tons of advice, and I'll probably ramble on, but you know, follow your heart, stick with it, get yourself a nice support group, find resources out there, use what's available to you, keep learning. And then I'd say very specifically, find your niche. Like, so when I first started working with CJ, I remember telling him my specialty, which is funny to think back, like even like 10 years ago or whatever, was SEO. It's changed drastically since then. So I would say by no means is that my strength anymore. I can handle SEO, but yeah, I mean, really find your niche, keep learning, keep working through the process, use the resources, use support group, whatever that happens to be, and just trust the process. If you keep doing those things, there will be an aha moment, something will click, the wheels will start to churn faster, the money will come in more, your life will improve altogether. I mean, really, like I said, you'll get your time back, you'll get more money, and then you can use that free time on whatever you want. If you have a family, great. If you have a bunch of cool hobbies, even better. You know, whatever that happens to be, take care of yourself, work the process, and things will work out for you.
I think that's well said. I mean, taking care of yourself is very important.
Yeah.
Never let the work kill you. Right?
No.
There are times where
you're not going to be
like
working
it's going
anymore if it does.
Exactly. But yeah, learning, and then, you know, there's a part of it, like you got to put the work in, right? We all know that.
That's a big part of it.
But I'll tell you what, like it may not happen overnight, but if you just continue pushing in that same direction, you will find success. Where I think a lot of people might falter is, okay, well, I tried this for a bit. Now I'm going to try this.
Yeah. Everything happens for a reason too, which is
absolutely
one thing leads to another domino effect. And you might think at the time, oh man, that wasn't so good for me. But if you look back at it a couple of years after that, you might be like, oh, that was good.
Yeah. Like I like to say, nothing is wasted.
That's true.
You know,
yeah,
I've
another good way to
had
look
some
at
bad
it.
experiences. I've done some things that weren't profitable. I've lost some money, but I learned incredible lessons from those things. And, you know, it's taught me what I don't want to do in the future.
You can't make the shots you don't take.
Wait, is that Gretzky?
I don't know who it is, but it's true.
Oh, Aaron, do you have any words of wisdom for us before we wrap this up?
Yes, please.
No, no, not really. I think if I had to pull one thing from what you guys are saying, especially in the wrap up, is consistently do the things you know to be the right things, regardless of how hard or difficult they are, and cooperation. Don't try and compete with everybody else in the industry. Don't try and compete with the competitors. like do what they're doing and do it better. It's not about trying to compete with them or trying to backstab some or but I think working together and talking with other people that are in the industry, coordinating with people, and then being consistent in doing what you know to be the right thing. I don't know. Sounds like what you guys have been focused on for the last number of years that seems to be working for you.
Yeah.
Well, and like you said, money is infinite. Like there's always more money, you can't have all of it all at once, but there's always more money coming down the pipeline. So, being uber competitive, like I'd rather have a good relationship with a competitor than backstab them to get a little bit of money, Now, if they're not doing a good job, then I'm more than happy to take business from them because I want to do a better job. But that's a different story.
Oh,
there's always
that
more
is a different
projects.
Story. Yeah. Well,
and how many websites are there?
Well, that's the thing, man. It doesn't matter what industry, but the internet really opened it up to be a global economy. So you can work from wherever and you can be doing business for someone or something wherever. It literally doesn't matter. So that whole competitor thing doesn't really matter as much. It's not like CJ owns a roofing company. I own a roofing company and we're really going at it to get this one job. Like that's not, there's enough jobs for everyone to go around, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, I sure appreciate you taking time and, especially in the middle of this big project to talk to us.
My pleasure.
It actually has been, it really has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was very, very, very nice to meet you, Chris, and I look forward to seeing what you've got in store for the next couple of years.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing Chris and about his business, about his ups and downs. And if you find yourself in the middle of all of that yourself, in the middle of the trenches and the grind, I hope this encouraged you. This format is actually our original format. We wanted to interview business owners and just hear their ups and downs, the things maybe you don't necessarily hear about all the time. So drop us a line. Let us know, do you prefer this format? Or if you have any suggestions for maybe some people that you'd like to have interviewed, we would love to hear that. At the end of the day, I hope you were entertained. I hope you got something out of this. And until next week, when Aaron will be back, mind your business. Hey, thanks for listening to the Minding Your Business podcast. Your hosts are Aaron Gerals and me, CJ Jolliffe. If you want to find out more about us or when we're going live or follow us on socials, just go to our website, mybpodcast.com. And again, thank you so much for listening.